The sun dipped below the jagged peaks of the Montana mountains, casting long, somber shadows over what remained of the mining town that once throve with life and promise. In 1876, nature and misfortune had conspired, leaving behind charred remnants and broken dreams. Amongst these remnants stood a solitary wooden chapel, its once proud steeple now a blackened skeleton against the evening sky. Reverend Elias Pearson, a man of stalwart faith and unyielding resolve, surveyed the desolate landscape with a heavy heart. He had arrived that morning, his journey having been a long and contemplative one, and now found himself standing amidst the debris of shattered lives and forgotten hopes. The air was heavy with the scent of soot and pine, the silence punctuated only by the distant call of a lone crow, its cry echoing sorrowfully across the valley. As Elias approached the charred chapel, the ground crunched beneath his boots, a reminder of both devastation and the possibility of new beginnings. He touched the scorched wood, feeling the deep grooves of time and fire etched into its surface, and whispered a silent prayer. In that moment, he vowed not only to restore this spiritual refuge, but to rekindle the spirits of the beleaguered townsfolk. Nearby, scattered remnants of what had been homes and businesses lay silent. This town had been vibrant once, a bustling microcosm where people sought fortunes and built lives. Now, it was little more than a ghost town, its population dwindled to the few souls clinging to what little remained. Yet, in this adversity, Elias saw potential for redemption and hope. The Reverend began his work in earnest, clearing debris and assessing what little could be salvaged. As he worked, a sense of calm determination took hold of him, as though each splinter he removed stripped away a layer of despair, revealing underneath the possibility of rebirth. Day blended into night, and back into day, the passage of time marked by his solitary toil under the vast, indifferent sky. It was during one of these long afternoons that Elias first encountered May. She was a figure who seemed to emerge from the shadows themselves, a woman of indeterminate age with hair the color of ravens and eyes that glinted like embers. She lived on the outskirts, in a small cabin that had survived the flames, a testament to resilience and isolation. With her was a young child, equally enigmatic, whose laughter rang out like a bell in the oppressive silence. Rumors swirled around May. The remaining townspeople whispered of witchcraft and ill omens, branding her not as one of their own but as an interloper, a harbinger of their misfortune. Yet, when Elias looked into her eyes, he saw not malice but a kind of defiant kindness, a light that pierced through the pervasive darkness. "You're the preacher here to save our souls," she said. When they first met, her voice smooth but edged with skepticism. Elias nodded, extending a hand in greeting. "I've come to rebuild, to offer hope where it's needed." May regarded him for a moment, her gaze both piercing and unreadable. Then, with a slight nod, she took his hand, her grip firm. "Hope is a precious thing," she murmured. "Easily lost, fiercely reclaimed." Their encounters grew more frequent, often punctuated by shared labor and quiet conversations. May possessed a wealth of knowledge about the land and its healing properties. Herbs and salves, remedies for both the body and the spirit, flowed from her hands. Initially, the townspeople remained wary, their fear of the unknown anchoring them to old prejudices. But slowly, Elias and May's shared efforts began to sway opinion. Walls were rebuilt, not just of the chapel but of trust and understanding. Elias found himself drawn to May's strength and resilience, qualities born from survival and solitude. They worked side by side, building not only a physical structure, but forging an alliance grounded in mutual respect and shared purpose. Her son, a curious and bright-eyed boy, flitted around them like a sparrow, bringing laughter to places where only silence had reigned. One evening, as they sat by the chapel's restored frame, Elias ventured to ask May about the rumors that surrounded her. "They say you're a witch," he said gently, the flicker of the firelight dancing in his eyes. May threw back her head and laughed, a sound rich and free, like the wind through the mountain pines. "People fear what they don't understand," she replied, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "But fear is just misplaced curiosity, isn't it?" Elias smiled, nodding in agreement. He had come to learn that May's wisdom was profound, wrapped in the mysterious cloak of her existence. There was no darkness in her that he could see, only a luminous spirit determined to survive and thrive despite adversity. As their alliance continued to strengthen, so did the resilience of the community that began to rise around them. The townsfolk, once divided by suspicion, found common ground in their efforts to rebuild. The burned skeletons of their homes gave way to new structures, simple but sturdy, a testament to the power of unity and purpose. Within and without, the town began to feel the stirrings of life once more. It was a fragile rebirth, one that required nurturing and vigilance, but the seed of redemption had been sown, tended by the unlikely partnership of a reverend and a woman once thought to be a witch. Together, they sparked a transformation that would soon reveal both unforeseen challenges and undeniable strength. For, amidst the shadows of past fears, new threats would emerge to test the bonds they had forged in fire and faith. Yet, even as the winds rustled through the chapel's newly raised walls, there was a sense of hope, burgeoning, a promise of new tomorrows rising from the ashes. Reverend Elias Monroe arrived in the ghostly remains of the once bustling mining town of Silver Creek with a heart full of resolve. The whispered winds seemed to carry stories of both prosperity and misfortune, of the gold that once flowed like a river, and of the fire that had ravaged lives and left behind only smoldering ruins and broken dreams. The landscape stretched desolately before him, yet amidst the ruins stood a partially charred wooden chapel. It was to this vestige of hope that Reverend Elias directed his efforts, determined to breathe life into it once more, as well as into the hearts of Silver Creek's broken residents. As Elias surveyed the task ahead, he noticed the tattered remains of homes and businesses, and heard the faint, weary murmurs of the people who still lingered. Among them was a woman whose presence set tongues wagging. May, as he later learned, she lived on the outskirts of the town, in a small cabin that had somehow escaped the Inferno's wrath. May was a figure of mystery and intrigue, and her reputation among the townsfolk was as divided as their shards of memories. "She's the one," they would whisper, a mixture of fear and wonder in their voices. "A witch, they say, brought upon us all this woe." Such claims hovered in the air like the acrid scent of smoke, clinging to Silver Creek with a tenacity only myths and fears could. Yet when Elias ventured to meet May himself, he found a woman far removed from the stories spun around her. Her eyes, an otherworldly shade of green, met his with a calm intensity. They seemed to reflect the emerald hues of the distant forests, and concealed untold tales that danced like whispers behind her gaze. May's life was a tapestry of whispered secrets and unspoken truths. With her lived a child, a boy no older than 5, who clung to her skirts with an innocent curiosity. His name was Samuel, and while his bright eyes studied Elias with some suspicion, a tentative smile played at the corners of his mouth. May introduced herself courteously, her voice smooth like the river's lullaby, and Elias noted that there was no malice or witchery in her tone, only a resilient warmth. It was in this first meeting that Elias observed the cautious grace with which May carried herself. Despite the scars of tragedy etched into the lines around her eyes, her spirit was indomitable. As they spoke, May revealed her knowledge of herbs and healing, a skill handed down from generations whispered about in the unnerving stillness of the town's outskirts. It was this her balm and healing salves that had earned her both scorn and reliance in equal measure. Elias found himself returning to May's cabin, drawn to her quiet strength and the improbable hope that she symbolized. It was during these visits that he noticed the flickers of conversation growing behind him as he left. Whispers shadowed his steps, but Elias, guided by his own faith and the conviction that people were more than what rumors made them, continued to stand by May, unfazed by the skeptics. The turning point came during a sweltering summer day, when a fever swept through the remnants of the population, sparing neither infant nor elder. The townspeople were fraught with fear, eyes hollow and glazed, as if their souls were being sucked into a deeper void of despair. Yet, it was May who stepped forward, with nothing but her collection of leaves, vials of tinctures, and her innate resolve. She visited each stricken family, offering her remedies, tending to their needs, and ignoring their hushed cries of witch or sorceress. Reverend Elias was a constant by her side, assisting her endeavors, affirming to all that her intentions were pure, that her hands were wrought with compassion and the healing arts, not dark sorcery. Together, they worked tirelessly, binding the community in its time of weakness, and with their collective efforts, the fever was quelled. Silver Creek began to heal, bodies mending alongside battered spirits. As the town's health improved, so too did May's standing amongst them. The sneers and whisperings gave way to nods of gratitude and exchanged smiles. Mothers who had clung to their ailing children now spoke of May's gifts with reverence. a shift forged through kindness and resilience rather than hearsay. Elias saw the transformation firsthand, both in the people and in his heart. May became an integral part of the community, her once distrusted skills now cherished as a divine blessing. Meanwhile, the bond between Elias and May solidified, not just through the shared strife, but through the simple moments of laughter shared, the conversations beneath starlit skies, and the silent understanding found in each other's company. The town slowly knitted itself back together, stone by stone, heart by heart. In May, Reverend Elias saw not a witch but a kindred spirit, strong and unyielding, with a soul as deep and embracing as the Montana sky. Together, they sowed seeds of hope amidst Silver Creek's ruins, whispering promises of a future reclaimed through faith, one where whispers of the past would no longer taint their tomorrows. And as they worked side by side rebuilding the chapel, that would serve as the cornerstone of their reborn town, an unspoken love kindled slowly amidst the ashes, growing like a phoenix poised to rise, a narrative tied closely to what was yet to come. The air in the once bustling Montana mining town was thick with the scent of smoke and scorched timber, a cruel reminder of the inferno that had reduced it to little more than ashes and charred frames. Reverend Elias, steadfast in his mission, surveyed the skeletal remains of the wooden chapel, the heart of the community, now silent and hollow. Yet, amidst the quiet chaos, hope flickered like the persistent flame of a candle refusing to be extinguished. As Elias began the arduous task of rebuilding the chapel, a figure appeared from the shadows, a woman carrying a child on her hip. Her name was May. Her dark hair framed a face touched by hardship, but illuminated by a resilience that intrigued Elias. The townspeople, wary and whispering, had branded her a witch, an accusation that hung in the air like the pall of smoke. Elias, a man of faith but also of introspection, saw in May not the embodiment of their fears, but the potential for salvation. Her presence, initially an object of suspicion, soon became the fulcrum upon which his efforts would balance. Conversations with May revealed her depth of knowledge, herbal remedies, survival techniques, skills honed from generations who had danced the delicate line between harmony and nature. Together, they set to work on the chapel, stone by stone, plank by charred plank. The work was arduous, but within that labor grew something profound, a bond forged through shared purpose and mutual respect. May guided Elias in ways he hadn't anticipated. Her understanding of healing not only applied to physical wounds, but to those of the heart and spirit. May's child, a curious and spirited boy named Luke, quickly became a fixture around the construction site. His laughter often punctuated the rhythm of hammers and saws, a sound that brought smiles even to the most weary worker. As May and Elias toiled, Luke would gather wildflowers, placing them in the hands of the builders, a small gesture that seemed to lift the weight of their burdens. May's growing involvement didn't go unnoticed by the townsfolk. Skepticism remained, but gradually, the fruits of their collaboration began shifting perceptions. Word spread of May's healing poultices that eased aching muscles, of teas that soothed ailments brought on by harsh conditions. Families who had once eyed her with distrust now sought her guidance, the shadows of superstition retreating before the light of her undeniable skills. It was during one of those long days, as the sun dipped behind the hills, casting an amber glow over their labors, that Elias paused to watch May as she worked. There was a grace to her movements, a quiet strength that seemed to anchor those around her. She glanced up, catching his gaze, a gentle smile touching her lips. In that moment, Elias realized his admiration had deepened into something more, a truth he was not yet ready to face. Despite their progress, not all harbored goodwill towards the new alliances forming within the community. Fear of the unknown lingered, clinging stubbornly to those who preferred the comfort of old prejudices. And though small voices of dissent arose, they were increasingly drowned out by gratitude and cooperation. Elias and May often spent evenings together, discussing plans for rebuilding, exchanging stories of their pasts. May told of her family, of traditions passed down, the secrets which now served the community so well. Elias shared tales from his travels, his own journey from doubt to faith, each story a stepping stone towards understanding and friendship. Their bond was not just built from necessity, it was a choice, a conscious decision to trust and believe in the goodness that lay buried beneath layers of fear and misunderstanding. In May, Elias found both a confidant and an equal, someone who challenged his ideas and enriched his understanding of what leadership truly meant. As the chapel began to rise from its ashes, so too did the spirits of the townsfolk. The structure's rebirth mirrored their own. Where once suspicion darkened their interactions, now there was laughter, cooperation, and a burgeoning sense of unity. One evening, as they sat on the chapel's newly constructed steps, watching the sun set over the horizon, Elias turned to May. "You've done more for this town than any sermon I could preach," he confessed, the honesty of his words palpable in the quiet dusk. May laughed softly, a sound like wind through the pines. "You've given them hope, Elias. That's the greatest gift of all." Their hands brushed as Elias reached for hers, a moment both tentative and profound. In that simple touch lay an unspoken promise, a shared understanding that together they could face whatever challenges the future held. The last light of day slipped away, leaving them enveloped in the warmth of a newly rekindled community spirit. Though the path ahead lay uncertain, one truth remained steadfast. Through adversity and doubt, through whispered fears and unfounded accusations, Elias and May had forged a new beginning, not just for themselves, but for the town that had risen with them, poised to face whatever trials lay ahead, united and unyielding. As the chapel took shape, so too did the community, healing slowly, rising from ashes, as bonds once considered improbable turned into the foundation of a new era. And in the midst of this transformation, love quietly took root, ready to grow alongside their endeavors, enduring as the lasting testament to what hope and faith could achieve. As the sun dipped below the rugged Montana horizon, casting long shadows over the remnants of the town, a sense of tranquility seemed to settle over the land. It was a rare gift, a moment of peace that Reverend Elias had come to cherish in the aftermath of the fire that had devastated their community. The chapel, though still a skeleton of its former self, stood prominently amidst the ruins, a testament to the resilience and determination that had begun to blossom within the townspeople. May was beside him, her eyes reflecting the fading light as she surveyed their progress. Together, they had nurtured the seeds of redemption, weaving threads of hope through a tapestry of despair. Trust had been hard-won, particularly for May, whose introduction had been marred by suspicion and fear, born from whispers of witchcraft and old superstitions. Yet, in Elias, she had found an ally and, unexpectedly, a friend. As the first stars pierced the indigo veil of night, an unease began to settle over their small congregation. The townsfolk had started gathering for an evening meeting, discussing plans to continue rebuilding efforts and reflecting on the progress that had been made. Children played amid the debris, their laughter a sweet reminder of innocence and the life yet to come. Suddenly, the night was fractured by an ominous sound, the distant thunder of hooves. It was an unsettling rhythm, growing ever faster, fueled by an urgency that sent chills down Elias's spine. The conversation ceased, and a tense silence enveloped the gathering. May was the first to react, her instincts honed by years of living on the edge of the unknown. "Elias," she whispered, her voice both calm and commanding, "we must prepare. There is danger coming." Before they could fully grasp what was unfolding, figures emerged from the darkness, rough men on horseback, their intentions clear from the gleam of weapons they brandished. A notorious gang, known throughout the region for their ruthlessness, had come to plunder the vulnerable town. The leader of the outlaws, a man with cold eyes and a sneering grin, dismounted and sauntered forward. "Evening, folks," he drawled, his voice dripping with false politeness. "We're here to make a withdrawal. Everything you've got." Panic rippled through the crowd, but before chaos could take root, May stepped forward, her presence commanding. "This town has nothing for you," she declared, her voice steady. The outlaw laughed, a harsh and hollow sound. "We'll be the judge of that, Missy. Now, best step aside before someone gets hurt." Elias felt a surge of fear, not just for the townspeople, but for May, whose defiance placed her squarely in harm's way. And yet, he couldn't help but marvel at her bravery. May turned to Elias, her eyes meeting his with a silent plea and a flicker of resolve. "We can do this," she whispered, and he nodded, understanding what needed to be done. As May began to orchestrate their defense, Elias saw the careful strategist within her come to life. "Gather what you can find," she instructed the townsfolk, her voice carrying over the anxious murmurs. "Anything that can be used as a barrier or a weapon." The townspeople sprang into action, driven by a newfound determination. They dragged broken carts and scattered debris to the town's entrance, creating makeshift barricades. May surveyed the scene with a critical eye, issuing orders with a precision that left no room for doubt. Elias joined her, his heart pounding. "What are you planning?" he asked, willing to follow her lead. "We need to hold them off," May replied. "If we can show them we're not easy prey, they may think twice about staying." With that, she turned to the women and children. "Fires," she said. "Light them. Let them see we're not hiding in the shadows." As flames illuminated the night, Elias climbed to a vantage point atop the chapel's remains, his voice ringing with clarity and conviction. "This is our home," he called out to the menacing figures, "and we'll defend it." The gang, faced with unexpected resistance, hesitated. May's calculated courage, bolstered by the townspeople who now stood united, shone brightly. The outlaws faltered, their leader's smug confidence wavering beneath the townsfolk's unwavering gaze. The standoff seemed to stretch on, the tension thickening the air. But then, as if sensing the resolve that burned within the townspeople, the leader spat on the ground. "You're not worth the trouble," he snarled, signaling to his men. One by one, the outlaws backed down, retreating into the night from whence they came. Relief washed over the townspeople as they watched the invaders depart. As dawn painted the sky in hues of gold and rose, the townsfolk gathered in the chapel's shell. Gratitude warmed the air, no longer laden with suspicion or fear. They looked to May, seeing now the truth of her strength, guardian, not a witch. Elias, standing beside May, felt his heart swell with a mix of admiration and affection. Together, they had defended their rising community, and in doing so, forged bonds that would withstand the challenges of tomorrow. Through the ashes and the trials faced, love and redemption emerged, resilient and eternal. And though the path ahead remained uncertain, Elias knew that with May by his side, there was nothing they couldn't overcome. The first light of dawn struggled through the ashen sky, casting a pale glow over the town's ruins, as tendrils of smoke lazily unfurled from the charred remains of several structures. The remnants of the previous night's chaos hung heavy in the air. The air was thick with the scent of spent gunpowder and the subtle tang of fear slowly giving way to relief. The townspeople stirred from their uneasy slumber, summoned from their sanctuaries by the promise of a new day. For the first time in months, hope flickered amongst them. May stood at the heart of the town, her gaze scanning the faces of those emerging from their makeshift shelters. Her eyes, once met with suspicion and fear, now reflected the gratitude and respect that she had so bravely earned. The same hands that had once shrunk away from her touch now reached forward in appreciation and solidarity. They were no longer seeing the witch of rumors, but a beacon of courage who had safeguarded their homes and lives. Reverend Elias approached May, his heart swelling with emotion and admiration. Their gazes met, a silent exchange that spoke volumes, a melding of respect, gratitude, and something more profound that had sparked between them amidst ruin and redemption. Elias knew that the journey to this moment had been fraught with challenges, but this new bond with May was one he cherished beyond measure. "May," Elias said, his voice carrying the weight of the night's events, "you've saved this town, your bravery. Without you, I fear what might have come to pass." May shook her head, humility etched into her features. "It was the courage of everyone here," she replied softly. "We stood together. Each one of us cast our fears into the fire, and from it drew our strength." The townsfolk gathered around them, murmurs of agreement rippling through the assembly. Amos, the town blacksmith, stepped forward, his broad frame casting a shadow over the cracked earth. "We owe you our lives, May," he rumbled, his voice gruff but warm with gratitude. "You've shown us what true bravery looks like." May offered a gentle smile, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "We've all faced the flames together," she said, "and together we've risen from them." A murmur of assent resonated through the crowd. The townspeople, who only days before had scoffed and whispered behind closed doors, now shared a collective understanding. The chapel that Reverend Elias was working to restore became a symbol of their renewed faith, not just in the divine, but in each other. As the morning unfolded, the townsfolk set to work, cleaning up the remnants of the raid. May moved amongst them, offering soothing words and healing poultices to those who needed them. Her touch was gentle, her presence a balm as effective as the remedies she applied. The whispered stories about May's supposed magic were transformed, now recounting her heroism and sacrifice. Elias surveyed the scene, pride swelling within him. He had come to this town seeking to mend souls and rebuild what had been lost, yet he found himself rebuilt as well, his purpose reshaped by the unexpected journey alongside May. Days turned to weeks, and the tangible signs of reconstruction began to manifest. Buildings were gradually restored. Walls that had been razed by flame now rose sturdy and true. The chapel, Elias's personal project, stood resplendent at the center of town, no longer a shell but a sanctuary for new beginnings. Elias found himself at the helm of both spiritual guidance and the practical matters of reconstruction, often turning to May for counsel. Her insights, grounded in understanding and empathy, proved invaluable. She had not only captured the trust of the villagers, but also their hearts, her own woven inextricably into the fabric of the renewed community. The changing seasons brought with them the beginnings of a new rhythm. The scars of the past, though not entirely erased, became merely echoes of lessons learned. The townsfolk faced each day with renewed vigor, industrious yet imbued with a shared purpose that transcended mere survival. Amongst these changes, the connection between Elias and May deepened. Their once separate paths twined into one through shared experiences and dreams forged in the crucible of hardship. Elias, no longer solely the preacher, but a cornerstone of this revitalized community, found joy in this place he now called home, the town where he truly discovered the meaning of redemption. One evening, as the crimson sun dipped below the horizon and cast the skies in hues of deep purple and gold, Elias approached May. The air crackled with the heady promise of summer, the warmth a balm against the cool breeze. "May," he began, his voice steady but laced with emotion, "this town owes you much more than words can say. I owe you much more." May tilted her head, meeting his gaze, the understanding between them unspoken yet palpable. She reached out, her fingers brushing against his, grounding him with the simplicity of her touch. "Elias, together we have transformed not only this town but ourselves," she replied, warmth suffusing her words. "From the ashes, we have built something beautiful, something eternal." At that moment, beneath the sprawling Montana sky, surrounded by the rebirth of hope and home, Elias understood more than ever that love and yielding, resilient love, had indeed emerged from the ashes. Their shared journey, once begun amidst ruin, now unfolded before them, promising a future ablaze with possibility and grace. May and Elias stood together, not only as saviors of a torn community, but as kindred souls bound by the strength of their shared past and the shimmering promise of what lay ahead. The sun peered gently over the horizon, casting a warm glow on the once desolate town that had begun to breathe life anew. Amid the remaining scars of their shared hardships, Reverend Elias felt a profound sense of belonging take root within him, no longer merely a preacher on a transient journey. His heart now clung to the land and, more importantly, to May, the enigmatic woman who had transformed from a figure of suspicion to one of heroism. The old wooden chapel, restored to its former glory, stood as a testament to their perseverance and unity. Elias reflected on the months spent rebuilding not just the structure, but the communal spirit. He remembered every nail driven into the wood, every prayer uttered for strength, and every moment spent side by side with May, whose presence had unwittingly become indispensable to him. Elias smiled to himself as he walked through the lively streets. Children played near repaired homes, and vendors called out cheerful greetings as the marketplace bustled back to life. It was a stark contrast to the town he had first arrived in, with its ghostly silence and haunted eyes. As he approached the small cottage May and her child now called home, Elias paused to admire the flourishing garden at its doorstep. May's touch was evident in every thriving plant and carefully tended flower. She was kneeling in the soil with her daughter, showing her how to coax new life from seeds. The sight stirred something deep within Elias, longing for permanence, a dream of family and love. "Morning, Elias," May called out, brushing dirt from her hands as she stood. Her daughter giggled, running to Elias and tugging on his sleeve, her eyes wide with excitement. "Good morning, young miss," Elias greeted with a playful bow, eliciting more laughter from the little girl. He turned to May, his voice tender. "The garden looks wonderful. You've truly brought this place back to life." May's smile was radiant, a testament to the resilience they had forged together. "It takes more than one person to heal a place, Elias. We all had a part in this rebirth." Their gazes lingered, communicating what words could not. They had shared battles, triumphs, and moments of vulnerability, knitting a tapestry of trust that neither had anticipated. As the days turned to weeks, Elias and May found solace in shared routines. Together, they taught the townsfolk about cooperation and renewal. May's healing knowledge, combined with Elias' spiritual guidance, fostered a community that extended far beyond the superficial. With each interaction, they knitted together what had once been frayed by fear and ignorance. The town's gratitude towards May grew, and she became a revered figure, her wisdom eagerly sought after. What had begun as an effort to rebuild a church had evolved into a mission to redefine what it meant to be a community. Despite the progress, Elias sensed an unspoken turmoil within May. She remained guarded, a protective shield wrapped tightly around her heart. On moonlit nights, when they would sit and reminisce, Elias often wondered about her past and the secrets that lingered in the shadows of her eyes. One evening, as the air hummed with the scent of blooming flowers, Elias found May sitting alone on the chapel steps, her usual brightness dimmed. He joined her, his presence gentle yet unwavering. "May," he began softly, "what burdens you tonight?" She hesitated, the silence between them heavy with unasked questions. May's voice, when it finally emerged, was colored with a vulnerability Elias had rarely glimpsed. "It's just, the past. It never truly leaves us, does it?" Elias nodded, understanding the weight of unhealed wounds. "No, it doesn't, but it shapes us, makes us stronger, and in the company of others, those burdens grow lighter." May met his gaze, her eyes searching for reassurance. "Do you think we can ever escape it, truly leave it behind and start anew?" Elias reached for her hand, his touch firm yet comforting. "I believe we can weave it into the tapestry of who we are, but it doesn't have to define us. We have the power to choose what we become." In that moment, amidst the echo of rustling leaves and distant laughter, May realized the depth of her feelings for Elias. It wasn't just respect or gratitude, it was love, pure, resilient, born from the ashes of adversity. Slowly, Elias rose, pulling May to her feet. "Dance with me," he said, an unexpected playfulness in his tone. May laughed, a genuine sound that danced through the night. "Here, now, why not?" Elias shrugged, already swaying to an unheard rhythm. "There's music in everything around us, in the whisper of the wind, in the cricket's song, and in the beating of our hearts." Together, under the vast canopy of stars, they danced. Movements guided not by skill but by emotion. They spun and twirled, drawing strength from each other. The past momentarily forgotten, the days that followed were bathed in newfound light. The town continued to blossom, and so did the love between Elias and May. It was a gentle thing, yet unbreakable, forged in a crucible of trials and triumphs. As the anniversary of the town's rebirth approached, the townsfolk planned a grand celebration, a testament to their determination and unity. The chapel, now a vibrant center of community life, was decorated with handmade garlands and glowing lanterns. That night, with the town gathered in joy, Elias stood before them, May by his side. He spoke of gratitude, of hope, and of the strength found in unity. His words acknowledged each person's contribution to the miracle of their rebirth. Finally, with a heart full of love, Elias turned to May. "In this sacred place, amid these people who've become our family, I find my past and my future intertwined with yours. May, will you continue this journey with me for the rest of our days?" May's smile was her answer, shining as brightly as the stars that bore witness to their vows. In the charred remains of an old mining town, love was born from the ashes, a beacon of redemption and a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. Together with their community, Elias and May embarked on a path not just of survival but of flourishing, a future crafted with love, courage, and hope eternal.